Hi, everybody, and welcome to New York Financial Organizers Organizing Life's Daily Demands. My name is Peter Gordon. I'm the president of New York Financial Organizers, and we help people pay their bills, process insurance claims, act as fiduciary, and really deal with all the non-investment side of finance. And the purpose of this podcast is to introduce you to other industries that help people organize their life. And today I'm really happy to have the pleasure of interviewing Martha Underwood of Prismm. Hi, Martha. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Peter?
I'm pretty good. It's a beautiful end of August day here in New York.
Same
And
here
where are you?
in Birmingham, and it's beautiful day as well.
Yeah, it's one of the great things about the this whole process is that I can interview people from all over the place. So, Martha, why don't you start by sharing your journey with us?
Sure. And so like you, I have a platform and I help service people, not necessarily in the investment side, but I'm a Gen Xer. Grew up in Miami, Florida. My mom and dad are boomers, and it's timely that we're having this discussion and talking about my background because we're in hurricane season. And there was a
Mm,
hurricane that just came through Florida, right? And the reason why I created Prism was an accident that happened with my dad during Hurricane Irma in 2017. So Hurricane Irma came through, the south of Florida. It didn't impact my parents' house as much, but it did impact a neighbor's house. And my dad, being the good guy he is, went over to the neighbor's house to help them cut a tree that had fallen on their roof. He's 77 at the time, and he thinks he's still 50 or, in his 40s in his prime. So he
I
gets
wouldn't
on
do
the
it in
roof.
my 50s
Yeah, well,
or 40s.
if you meet my dad, you'll understand. But he got on the roof with his chainsaw and lost his footing and fell off the roof and went unconscious. My mother was there and she was frantic. I live in Birmingham, Alabama. They're in Miami, Florida. I can't get to them. And when she calls me, we have another family member go over to help them get to the hospital. But my dad is kind of unconscious at this time. He isn't really lucid. So we don't know what type of damage there is. We get to the hospital. He's coming to a little bit, and my mom hands the phone to the doctors, and I'm on the other line, and they're asking me all of these questions. But one, I don't know, and two, they kind of paused. They were cautious because they wanted to make sure I had consent to be able to speak on my father's behalf. I knew he didn't take blood, and I know he had some issues with anesthesia, but that was about the extent of it. Um, they check him out. Thankfully, he only ended up with cracked ribs and he is okay today. But during about an 8 hour span, we really did not know what would happen. Like if he had internal bleeding, will he die? And so that sparked a lot of questions about where is his will? Where is his life insurance policy? Um, they have assets in other places. And so, where are those assets? As children, how do we handle their affairs? Because we know that my mom is just going to be um, not helpful because she's so emotional at this time.
Mm.
And so, being in technology over the past 25 years, I've worked in IBM, I've worked in Silicon Valley, I've worked in banking on the tech side. I said that there is a solution to this problem. There is a technical solution to this problem. And that was the birth and the creation of Prism, to where I created a platform to where I can aggregate all of their assets so I know where all of the money is. I can catalog all of their property, any heirlooms that they have. And then, most importantly for me at the time, was their documents, and be able to get their documents and share it with my family members. So if this ever happened again, me being in Birmingham and them being in Miami, I'm still able to handle the affairs for them while I'm en route to go down to Miami.
Well, that's great. And, it really resonates with the work I do. I've done a number of little videos about the need to have your papers in order for when the end comes, especially if something happens when you don't expect it. So if you
Right.
have a power of attorney and a healthcare proxy and a living will and a will, what's the point if nobody knows where it is?
That's
So
exactly.
I love this solution that you have.
Thank you.
Can you dive into a little more about the problem that Prism is solving?
Sure. So, like at end of life, and in my parents' situation, if I would have asked my mom, "Where are these documents?" one, she wouldn't have known because my dad took care of everything.
Right.
Um,
Not
and
unusual.
not unusual, right? The husband takes care of everything, and in this sense, I would have had to go home, fly home to Miami and dig through mounds and mounds of paper everywhere, and closets and file cabinets, some online. Did I have access to his email to be able to access some of the things? Like, what about access to his bank account information? Did I have the password to, log on digitally? All of these things. And at times, because we're living in a time where we're trying to move to the digital world, right? There are banks now that charge you money or charge you a fee to mail you a statement because they
Yeah.
like you to be able to get it digitally. Some people still get it in the mail, some people get it online. So how do I bring all of that together, especially in, like you said, an emergency, or when a need comes to where I need to have a power of attorney enacted or end of life? And so we solve that by centralizing it and digitizing it, because then you can access it from anywhere. And the other thing I'll note is we now have, like me, I live in another state. Most children, or most caregivers at times, are children that live in other states. And so where do you even start to try to put your hands on the documents that you need to put your hands on in order to handle the affairs, to make sure you have accounting of all of the assets, of all of the documents? And so that's what Prism solves. It makes it easier for caregivers to be able to access critical information at their fingertips.
Yeah, and it's interesting because that's the work that we do for our clients, and
Mm,
very often it's for well, it could be for a busy professional who just can't spend time on it. Number one, number two, it's often for seniors who have cognitive issues and they can't do what they used to do. But it's
right.
a service that while we love our service, but this replicates what you're doing, replicates a good part of what we do, and makes it easier and affordable for other people to do it. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'd love to have everybody as a client, but the fact is, it's great to have services like Prism out there for others, so that it's affordable, and oh my God, to the convenience and the heartache that it will solve when the time comes is priceless.
Yeah, it's the peace of mind. And that's the thing that I kept in mind for me when I designed it and created it, was typically people underestimate the impact of grief. And so when something happens, right,
Absolutely.
they truly underestimate this. And so when something happens to a loved one, um, they miss things because they're grief stricken, and sometimes they're in shock. And so even if they're at someone's home digging through the mounds and mounds of papers and looking in the drawers and in the closet, they'll miss things because they're in a heightened emotional state. And I saw that when, the incident happened with my dad, because I had to keep a level head, even though I was a mess inside. And I said, well, God forbid the worst happens. We'll all be grief stricken because we're a very tight knit family. And something will be missed. And I did not want that to be missed, because my dad worked hard his whole life. And people don't realize how it falls apart in the end. So
Oh yeah.
we work hard to build wealth, to be able to transfer it to the next generation and to our heirs and to our family members. And we don't realize that how complex that can be. And the simple thing of just knowing where all of this information is can help immensely in ensuring that all your hard work wasn't for naught, right?
So I love that term, wealth transfer process.
Yes.
I guess I kind of geek out on it, but it's really important. And can you give some examples where Prism has had a significant impact on that?
Yes, so we have estate planning attorneys that's on here and probate attorneys who typically have to do like asset discovery. And with Prism, because we connect through an asset aggregator, think of like mint.com or Plaid, where you can bring all of your accounts in. And so we bring all of those accounts in. So when the family, there's a transition that happens, they can easily say, I see where all of these accounts are to make sure that they've accounted for them and it goes into the wealth process to be transferred over to the beneficiaries that were listed. Is one of the challenges that a lot of probate attorneys talk to us about is they have to find all of the assets. Sometimes they have to subpoena within a 20-mile radius of someone's home, all of the banks, to say, hey, do you have an account for this person, right? And that will save them dollars because it costs for probate attorneys to do that. So going into Prism and being able to see all of the accounts listed there with the last balance, because that's asked for as well. What was the balance of this account at time of death? Then they're able to see that within Prism easily and quickly, and it saves time and it saves money, and it makes the transfer to the beneficiaries much simpler.
Yeah, and also, it occurs to me that by going through the exercise of getting everything into Prism, it's something that most families will not do, and it'll help educate themselves and certainly the heirs or the future heirs about what the assets are and what the important documents are. So it's really giving them an impetus to do work that they don't really want to do and probably don't even know they should be doing.
Right. And it helps, especially going into the holidays, right? This is the perfect time because you're going to be around the Thanksgiving table. You're going to be around the Christmas table.
Great point.
Right. For you to have these conversations with your aging mom or your grandma and say, let's talk about this. And the beauty of Prism is it's so simplistic and easy to have that conversation and say, Mom, I traveled here from New York. I need to be able to access these things in the event something happens to you. So let's talk about it while I'm here.
And it's a great bridge. It's a bridge to the conversation, which is often a difficult conversation.
Absolutely. It helps. And the one thing, Peter, that I'll say also about Prism is you kind of touched on it. That people are private, especially the older, generation. They are not trusting of technology, and they are also private. And so
they're very often not trusting of their family.
That's right.
Or others.
That is correct.
It's difficult.
It is very difficult, which is why we built a privacy mechanism within Prism so that they can control who sees what and when. And so again, based off of my family, and I'm like, it's 7 of us. And we're like, well, maybe we don't want baby brother, having access to the financials because he might, as the baby, go to mom and say, hey, let me borrow $10,000 and let me do this. And mom will give it to him, right? And so that's why we said, how can we make sure we preserve people's privacy, but also help them give the consent and provide the transparency needed when the time comes? And that's why we said, okay, you have control in your hands. You can say, I'm going to put this information in here, but I don't want anyone to see it until after I die. Or if the need happens to where I'm incapacitated, then they have a place to go to trigger the account. Everything goes into a read-only state. Then if you were given those permissions, you'll be able to see everything. And so that preserves your privacy for your documents, for your assets, for your financial accounts. Any one of those, the privacy is in the hands of the subscribers.
So where do you see Prism heading? Like, and do you have plans to evolve Prism to better serve like financial advisors or estate attorneys or daily money managers for that
Yes.
matter.
Absolutely. We actually just launched our Prism for Organizations. So it's an enterprise level platform. So financial advisors, estate attorneys,
That's
um,
great.
money managers like yourself can get on the enterprise level versions and invite your clients to the platform. And you will have a dashboard where you can see all of the clients on Prism. And whenever you're working with an individual, working with one of them, it's just a matter of clicking on it, going into their account, and you see what they allow you to see. And you can go ahead and manage as needed. Financial advisors love it because they kind of use it as an onboarding tool to capture this information up front before they start diving into the investments. And like you said before, it's also a great bridge to bring on the next generation of clients because typically, they're like, oh, grandma
Right,
or mom
right.
has that financial advisor. I don't need it yet. But when they are brought into the conversation, when you start talking about legacy and transfer of wealth and inheritance, then they perk up and they're like, oh, yes, we absolutely need to know about this. And so it builds a pipeline of the next generation of clients for that financial advisor. So it's a great bridge for them as well.
Yeah, no, I've talked to many financial advisors and wealth advisors who have a concern because their clients are really aging quickly, and they're concerned about their clients, and also they want to make sure that the next generation gets it, gets the money they're supposed to get, and they recognize that, hey, that's a potential client for us as well.
Right.
And so it is a great tool, and I think the use for estate attorneys, as you talked about already, is pretty obvious.
Yep.
So how do people get more information about Prism?
Sure, they can go to Get Prism, GetPrism.com. We're on all of the social media platforms at Get Prism, GetPrism. And if they want to contact me, they can find me at Martha@GetPrism.com.
That's great. And that information will be, in the text version of the underneath the video if you're watching the video, and also within the text of the podcast. Well, Martha, thank you so much. This was really illuminating. I'm very, very happy that we were introduced by Elsa Smith, and
Yeah.
I look forward to, we're going to be talking more about how New York financial organizers can use this really, really wonderful program.
Awesome. We're looking forward to it.
Okay, thank you very much. And thanks for listening and or watching, and I'll see you at the next video.